Hello, Power fans. It's Mathonical. Join me for round 4 with Disciple Affinity. And this opening hand, while it is a one-lander, I am a bit more comfortable keeping this one because we are on the draw. We have a Terrarion plus a Springleaf Drum. This is a blue mana, so we will be able to cast a Sculptor and Thoughtcast if we draw more land. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one. We do have 2 draws to get us to that extra land, and we are paid off, so we're in a good spot here. Going to get the Springleaf Drum down first. It doesn't actually matter which one we play, but because playing the Etherium Sculptor, the next one is free anyways. So here we go. Gonna get the Sculptor down, going to start casting free stuff, and get our Thoughtcast. We could have cast a Myr Enforcer there, but I felt it was more important to get our card draw online when they had their counter magic down. Here we're gonna go ahead and play 2 Myr Enforcers, and we're in a pretty good spot here. They're gonna have to start spending removal on our creatures, and they've already spent 1 Scred on our Etherium Sculptor, so chances are they only have 2, maybe 3 more ways of dealing with these, and it should be a pretty good roadblock, and we can even get aggressive at this point. In this matchup, we don't need to hold the Atog in hand until we have the combo. They don't have a way of removing it nicely off the board when we have this many artifacts. All of their removal is going to be damage-based. We aren't going to play the Lonely Sandbar at any point. Since we have 4 mana, we're always going to be holding these to cycle. We just want to dig through our deck to find more threats and more ways of winning the game. They're going to get in with some damage. I'm really glad they didn't have another ninja there. It does mean that their hand is probably full of counter magic and the like, but at this point we don't mind too much. We're going to get in with everything. They're going to block, that's fine. We've got them down to 4, so now we've got 3 lethal threats. I didn't want to throw the Atog into any counter magic, especially a Spell Stutter, and sure enough they did have it. I don't mind them drawing an additional card, because at this point we have the Triple Abyss going on. They need to find more Screds to be able to deal with the Myr Enforcers, and we do have a Dispel, so we don't even mind that much. Alright, so they've got a lot of chump blockers online, and they very likely still have 1 Spell Stutter Sprite. So we're just gonna we tempted them with the Sculptor, because if they counter that, we'd get the Atog online. And we're in a pretty good spot here. Since they blocked with both of their creatures, we now can play the Atog without fear of it getting Spell Stutter, so we go ahead and do that. Of course, they still have that Spell Stutter, and they do need to play it because we now have 4 lethal threats on the battlefield. They need as many chump blockers as possible. They have a bunch, but that's not enough, so we're just going to go for the kill here. Turns out they have some nifty fire and ices, and they were planning on using one to try and tempo us out, but we'll just go ahead and use that Dispel to win the game on the spot. Alright, so this one is a pretty good matchup for us, and we do have some good sideboard cards to bring in. Once again, we're going to be bringing in the 3 Pyroblast and the 1 Dispel. However, in this matchup, the Myr Enforcer is quite a bit better. So we're going to take out the Etherium Sculptors. It's pretty easy for them to counter it and attack through it. It doesn't stop Ninja, it only stops like an Augur the Bolus, which isn't a big deal. And we're of course going to take out the 1 Springleaf Drum, especially since we're taking out some of the earlier creatures that would have used it anyway. And of course, yeah, bring in the Reaping the Graves. Same plan as many of the other matchups we've been doing. Just instead of Myr Enforcers, we took out the Sculptors. Our opening hand, while this is the kind of hand that I wish I had a Sculptor, we do not, but we're still going to keep it. We should have enough time. Blue-Red Delver is usually more of a mid-rangey deck, and even if they get into turn 1 Delver, it's a bit difficult for them to follow up a lot of aggression. We're going to hope they don't have a Augur into a Ninja, and they have a Scred on top, so they do have our Myr Enforcer covered, or at least our first one. We're just going to go ahead and keep our slow plan going of drawing cards. If they have a Ninja here, they're going to be able to get a lot of advantage going. And they do. Alright, so they've got their card advantage nicely online. We could have played the Atog there, but because we have so few artifacts, it would be a game plan for them to start destroying it, and if they have Hydroblast, they can remove it from the board. So at this point, I would rather just hold up. Or I mean, yeah, Hydroblast would be good against it. So we're going to hold our combo. We don't mind taking damage, letting them draw cards, because they're likely going to be tight on mana later on. So to that effect, we're going to get as many artifacts on the battlefield as possible. Now at any point, if we draw enough counter magic, we can go for the win. We don't mind taking a few hits. We've got multiple turns we can do that. Alright, so they're drawing more cards. That one actually missed, which is fine. We know 2 of the cards in their hand. We can try and play around them. We're going to go ahead and play the Disciple, because if they counter it, we don't really mind. We have the win through other means. They're going to scred our Disciple, but we're just going to go ahead and get in some cheeky damage with our cycling that we needed to do anyways. We really need to find some of our 5 spells that interact with them. Still not finding them. We do find a Myr Enforcer, and since they burnt their scred on our Disciple, we can play that, and it might buy us some time if they don't have an additional way of removing it. Here we're just going to hold up cycling the Lonely Sandbar instead of the Chromatic Star. Both of them use 1 mana, but the Lonely Sandbar holding up mana makes it look like we're representing something. So we're just going to go with this line. We're getting so close. We've got a lot of cycling to do next turn, and if we find some counter magic, we can start thinking of going for the win at any point. Our opponent is doing the Brainstorm plus Shuffle, and it looks like the game is breaking. So I'll be back in 1 second. And we're back. We've got plenty of cycling to do, so let's get started. All we really need to do at this point is find some way of countering their counter magic, and since we found this Reap in the Graves, we're actually going to run the Atog out just because this many spells going on is going to allow us to get everything back. We can even double target the Atog and get back the Enforcer plus Disciple, and I feel like that's a really good position to be in. We're going to be able to cast the Enforcer. If they counter it, fine. If they don't, now we have a blocker to deal with all of their board. So we're in a decent position. They end up having a Harvest Spire. Pretty interesting. I guess that's tech against Gurmag Angler, so it makes sense to use it there. So now we're going to start cycling again. We've just got to find a bit of counter magic. So we're still not finding it. Oh, there we go. We finally found it. We're going to play the Enforcer first just to see if they're inclined to counter it, and if they're not, that's fine. We're going to be going for the Atog. We know that they have Pyroblast. And the only way we aren't able to resolve the Atog here is if they have Spell Stutter Sprite plus Hydroblast, because we'll be able to counter 1 spell. They must have 2, and we don't have Dispel as their interaction, so the Pyroblast wouldn't do anything. So we're happily going for it here. Turns out they only had a counter spell, which means we now have the win. This is just going to resolve, and it's just a simple matter of sacrificing a lot of our artifacts and just flinging at their face. There's nothing they could have here. Like, they could have Daze or Foil, but blue-red Delver doesn't normally play those, so we're just going to go for it. Another play could have been casting both Disciples and sacrificing the artifacts there, but the downside to that plan is because they had 1 red up, if they have any Lightning Bolt or Scred, they'd be able to stop us from winning this turn. So we decide to just go for it, and it works out. We're now 3-1, and I'll see you in the next round.